Mommy, why is this little light still blinking? 3-year-old Mia Carter's tiny voice cut through the silence of the Blackwood Mansion kitchen. No one answered at first. The room was too polished, too expensive, and too controlled for a child's innocent question to feel important. But Adrian Blackwood heard it. The billionaire stood at the end of the long marble dining room table, one hand resting on a contract worth hundreds of millions of dollars, his dark suit perfectly pressed, his silver watch catching the warm lights above him. Everyone in the room knew Adrian Blackwood did not like surprises. Not in business. Not in his home. Not anywhere. Then Mia stepped out from beneath the kitchen table, holding something in both hands. It was small, black, old enough to be ignored. But the tiny red light on the side was still glowing. A voice recorder. Adrian's eyes moved from the device to the table beneath it. For a moment, nobody spoke. The chef stopped arranging plates. The house manager stopped checking his tablet. Even Victoria Hale, Adrian's elegant fiancée, stopped smiling. Mia looked around at the adults staring at her, and tilted her head. "I found it under the table," she said softly. Her mother, Elena Carter, immediately walked toward her. "Mia, sweetheart, give that to me." Elena's voice was gentle, but there was worry behind it. She knew this house. She knew the rules. People like Adrian Blackwood owned companies, properties, and influence. People like Elena cleaned their rooms, prepared their meals, and stayed invisible. "She probably picked up some old device from somewhere," Victoria said with a calm smile. Her voice sounded kind. Almost too kind. "Children find strange things all the time." The chef gave a small laugh. "Maybe it's one of those toy recorders." Mia looked down at the device. She did not look scared. She did not look confused. She simply shook her head. "No. It was hiding." That sentence made Adrian look closer. Not because he believed the child knew what she had found. He didn't. A 3-year-old did not understand corporate secrets, private conversations, or hidden technology. But Adrian understood something else. Children did not usually describe objects that way unless something about them felt wrong. "Where exactly did you find it?" Adrian asked. His voice was quiet. Mia walked back to the table and pointed underneath it. "There. Mommy cleans there every night." Elena looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Blackwood, I'm sorry. She shouldn't be bothering everyone." Adrian did not look at Elena. He looked at the space beneath the table. A place adults rarely noticed. A place where conversations happened after dinner, when staff members left the room and important people believed they were alone. Victoria stepped forward. "Adrian, really? This is unnecessary. We have security everywhere. If someone placed something in the house, we would know." Adrian finally looked at her. That was the first moment he noticed something strange. Victoria was not asking what the recorder contained. She was asking how it got there. "Who has access to this kitchen after midnight?" Adrian asked. The question changed the room. The chef looked down. The house manager became silent. Victoria's expression remained perfect, but only for a second. Adrian noticed. He noticed everything. Years of surviving in a world built on loyalty and secrets had taught him one rule. People revealed themselves most when they believed they were hiding. Mia reached for her stuffed animal lying near the chair. She hugged it against her chest and looked back at the recorder. "It was listening," she whispered. Adrian stared at the small device in her hands. A moment earlier, it had been just another strange object found by a child. Now it was something else. A question. A warning. A crack in the perfect image of his home. And the most unsettling part was not that someone had hidden a recorder beneath his table. It was that a little girl everyone ignored had been the only person who noticed it was there. Adrian Blackwood did not touch the recorder again. Not yet. He simply stood beside the kitchen table, watching the small device in his hand while the people around him waited for his reaction. In the past, a situation like this would have been simple. He would have called his security team, removed the object, and demanded answers. But something about the way everyone responded bothered him more than the recorder itself. Nobody asked what was on it. Nobody asked where Mia found it. They only wanted to explain why it did not matter. Victoria stepped closer with the same calm expression she wore at charity events and business dinners. "Adrian, I understand why you are cautious, but this is getting blown out of proportion. Mia is a sweet child, but she is 3 years old. She does not know what she found." Her words sounded reasonable. That was exactly why Adrian listened carefully. People who wanted to hide something rarely sounded afraid. They sounded logical. Elena lowered her eyes. "I am sorry, Mr. Blackwood. I should have watched her more closely." Adrian looked at her. "Why are you apologizing?" Elena hesitated. She looked surprised by the question. "Because she interrupted your meeting." That answer stayed with him. Not because it was unusual, but because it was familiar. In his home, employees apologized for things they did not do. They apologized for asking questions. They apologized for being noticed. Mia stood beside her mother, holding her old stuffed animal against her chest. She did not understand the tension in the room, but she understood one thing. Everyone was talking about the recorder, but nobody was listening to her. Adrian noticed that too. He turned back to the table. "Mia," he said gently, "show me where you found it." Victoria immediately looked at him. "Adrian, is that necessary?" He did not answer her. Mia walked slowly to the table and pointed underneath it. "Right there." Adrian crouched down and looked. The space beneath the table was clean. Too clean. The underside of the marble surface had been polished carefully, but one small area looked different. A faint mark remained where the tape had been removed and replaced. It was something most people would never notice. But Adrian had built his life by noticing small things. He stood up. "Who cleaned this area last night?" he asked. The room became quiet. The chef looked at the house manager. The house manager looked toward Victoria. That small exchange lasted less than 2 seconds, but Adrian saw it. "Thomas?" Adrian said. The house manager straightened his posture. "The kitchen staff handles cleaning, sir." "And who supervises them?" Adrian asked. Thomas paused. "I do." Adrian nodded slowly. Mia was not a witness in the way adults understood witnesses. She did not know names, motives, or plans. But she had seen something that everyone else had walked past. A place where something did not belong. A thing hidden where nobody expected a child to look. Victoria smiled again. "Adrian, I think we are making this more serious than it needs to be. Let the security team check it. We have more important matters today." Adrian looked at the contract still waiting on the dining table. The same contract he had planned to sign before Mia found the recorder. Suddenly, the timing felt different. "Actually," he said, "I think this is the most important thing in this room." Victoria's smile became slightly smaller. Only slightly. But Adrian noticed. He always noticed. Mia reached up and touched her mother's hand. "Mommy was cleaning here yesterday," she said softly. Elena looked down at her daughter. "Mia, honey, we do not need to talk about that." Adrian looked at Mia. "Why not?" Elena did not answer. Because in this house, some people were used to being heard. Others were used to staying quiet. Adrian looked once more at the recorder, then at the people standing around him. The smallest person in the room had found the first clue. Now he needed to know who was afraid of it. "Nobody leaves this kitchen until I know who had access to this area," Adrian said. For the first time that morning, nobody moved. And somewhere inside the perfect walls of the Blackwood mansion, someone realized the child they had ignored had just changed the rules. The kitchen remained silent after Adrian Blackwood gave his order. No one moved toward the door. No one reached for a phone. The people who had spent years moving confidently through Adrian's mansion suddenly looked like they were waiting for permission to breathe. Adrian noticed every reaction, but he focused on one thing first: the recorder. He placed it carefully on the marble counter and looked at Thomas, the house manager. "I want every access record from this kitchen for the last 30 days. Thomas nodded quickly. "Of course, Mr. Blackwood. And I want it before anyone knows why I asked." Thomas paused for half a second. It was small, almost invisible. But Adrian saw it. Thomas recovered quickly. "Understood." Mia stood beside Elena, watching the adults move around her. She did not understand why a small black device had changed the entire room. She only knew she had found something strange under a table where her mother cleaned every night. Adrian looked down at her. "Mia, did you touch anything else under the table?" Mia shook her head. "No, I got my bear." She lifted the old stuffed animal in her arms. "Then I saw the little red light." Adrian nodded. That was exactly what concerned him. Mia had not searched for a secret. She had not tried to discover anything. She had simply noticed something adults ignored. Later that afternoon, Adrian sat alone in his private office while his security team reviewed the recorder. The office was quiet except for the sound of papers moving across the desk. On the wall were photographs of business deals, awards, and people shaking his hand. A life built on control. A life where nothing was supposed to happen without his knowledge. Then the security specialist placed a small report on the desk. "The device is not part of your security system." Adrian looked up. "Explain." "It is a commercial recording device. Modified. The battery was replaced recently. The tape holding it underneath the table was industrial grade. Someone wanted it hidden for a long time." Adrian leaned back in his chair. "How long?" The specialist hesitated. "Based on the storage capacity and battery setup, possibly several months." Several months. The word stayed in Adrian's mind. Someone had been sitting in his kitchen, eating his food, speaking freely, believing they were invisible. Adrian looked through the glass wall toward the mansion courtyard. He saw Elena walking with Mia near the garden path. Elena was carrying laundry. Mia was holding her stuffed bear. Two people who had been inside his home every day, yet somehow remained outside his attention. That bothered him more than he expected. A few hours later, Adrian returned to the kitchen. He wanted to see the place again. Not as a billionaire. Not as someone with security teams and business advisors. He wanted to see what Mia had seen. He lowered himself near the floor and looked beneath the table. The angle was different from down there. The room changed. From a child's height, the adult's world looked completely different. The table blocked faces. Conversations became sounds. Small objects became impossible to ignore. Then Adrian noticed something. A tiny scratch on the side of the table leg. It looked meaningless at first, but it matched the position of the recorder. Someone had moved the table recently. Adrian stood up slowly. "When was this table moved?" he asked when Thomas entered the kitchen. Thomas looked confused. "I am not sure, sir." Adrian watched him carefully. "You manage this house. You know when furniture changes." Thomas looked away for a moment. "Perhaps the cleaning staff moved it." Adrian did not respond. He simply picked up his phone and made a call. "I need the kitchen renovation records from the last 6 months." A few minutes later, another message arrived. There had been no renovation. No reason for the table to move. No reason for the recorder to be placed in that exact location. Adrian looked back at the empty kitchen. The answer was getting closer, but something still bothered him. The person who placed the recorder knew where people talked privately. They knew when nobody would notice. They knew the house better than a stranger ever could. Adrian returned to the counter, where the recorder sat inside a clear evidence bag. He looked at the small red light that had started everything. "Someone in this house wanted to hear the truth," he said quietly. Then he added, "The question is why they were afraid of it." As Adrian walked away, his phone received a new alert. The camera system report had finished loading. One line appeared on the screen. Kitchen camera access detected. Time: 2 hours before the recorder was discovered. User identity restricted. Adrian stopped walking. Someone had not only hidden a recorder in his kitchen. Someone had tried to watch who found it. Adrian Blackwood stared at the security report on his phone for several seconds. The message was simple, but it changed the meaning of everything. Someone had accessed the kitchen camera before Mia found the recorder. Someone had not only hidden a device. Someone had been waiting to see what happened after it was discovered. Adrian returned to his office and closed the door. For the first time that day, he did not call his security team. He did not call his lawyers. He did not announce an investigation. Instead, he did something nobody expected. He said nothing. Adrian knew that people revealed more when they believed they were safe. If someone inside his house had made a mistake, he wanted to know what they would do next. The following morning, Adrian walked into the kitchen carrying the recorder. Everyone was already there. Victoria was drinking coffee near the counter. Marco, the chef, was preparing breakfast. Thomas was reviewing the daily schedule. Elena was helping Mia color in a small notebook at the table. Adrian placed the recorder down. "The device is damaged," he said calmly. Everyone looked at him. "The information inside may not be recoverable." It was a lie. A careful one. The recorder was already copied and secured. Adrian watched the room instead of the device. Victoria's shoulders relaxed slightly. Marco stopped moving for a moment. Thomas looked toward the floor. Tiny reactions. Small enough that most people would miss them. Adrian did not. "That is unfortunate," Victoria said softly. "But perhaps now we can move on." Adrian nodded. "Perhaps." Then he walked away. He did not see Mia watching the adults. He did not see the way she looked at Victoria, not with fear, but with curiosity. Children noticed emotions before they understood reasons. Later that afternoon, Adrian reviewed the security logs again. The restricted camera access had not come from outside the house. It came from an internal system. Someone had used a device already connected to the mansion network. That meant only a few people could have done it. Adrian asked his security specialist to check the access history. The answer arrived 30 minutes later. A tablet registered under the household management account had connected to the kitchen camera. Thomas's account. Adrian looked at the screen. Thomas had worked for the Blackwood family for 20 years. He had organized events, protected schedules, and handled private matters. Betrayal was not something Adrian accepted easily. But he also knew evidence mattered more than feelings. That evening, Adrian found Thomas alone in the hallway near the kitchen. "Did you access the kitchen camera yesterday?" Adrian asked. Thomas stopped. His expression changed. Only slightly. "I review security systems regularly, sir." "That was not my question." Thomas looked down. "Yes." Adrian studied him. "Why?" Thomas was silent for a long moment. Then he answered carefully. "Because I noticed something unusual." "What unusual?" Thomas looked toward the kitchen. "People were having conversations they did not want others to hear." Adrian listened closely. And you placed the recorder? Thomas immediately shook his head. No, sir. That answer came too quickly. Adrian noticed. But before he could ask more, a small voice came from behind them. The red light was there before. Both men turned. Mia stood at the kitchen entrance, holding her stuffed bear. Elena was behind her, ready to bring her back. Adrian crouched slightly. Before what, Mia? Mia looked at the table. Before everyone was quiet. The words were simple, childlike, but they stayed with Adrian. Before everyone was quiet. He looked back at Thomas. The house manager looked away. Another piece of the puzzle appeared. Not a confession. Not proof. Just another crack. That night, Adrian reviewed the camera footage around the kitchen again. He expected to find the person who placed the recorder. Instead, he found something else. A person entering the kitchen after midnight. A person who did not belong there at that hour. The image was unclear. The face was hidden by the angle of the camera. But Adrian recognized one thing immediately. The person was wearing a bracelet. A bracelet he had given Victoria months earlier. Adrian leaned closer to the screen. The mystery was no longer about who found the recorder. It was about who had been desperate enough to hide the truth inside his own home. And now Adrian knew one thing for certain. The person who feared that little red light was much closer than he ever imagined. Adrian Blackwood did not sleep well that night. Not because he feared losing money. Money had never been the thing that kept him awake. He had lost deals before. He had rebuilt companies before. What bothered him was something much harder to accept. Someone inside his own home had created a version of reality where everyone around him knew more than he did. The next morning, Adrian returned to the kitchen before anyone arrived for breakfast. The room looked exactly the same. The marble counters were clean. The silverware was arranged perfectly. The table stood in the same place. But Adrian no longer saw a kitchen. He saw a place where conversations had been hidden. A place where people had trusted silence more than honesty. The recorder sat inside a clear evidence container on the counter. The security team had finished recovering the files. There were dozens of recordings. Most were ordinary. Staff conversations. Delivery schedules. Daily routines. But then Adrian found a file created 3 months earlier. He pressed play. At first, there was only the sound of dishes moving. Then Victoria's voice appeared. Calm. Controlled. Familiar. Adrian always believes loyalty is the same as love. Adrian froze. He did not move. He listened. Victoria was speaking with someone else. The voice was unclear, but Adrian recognized Marco, the private chef. Once he signs the new agreement, the structure changes, Victoria continued. Everything becomes easier. Adrian's hand tightened slightly around the edge of the counter. The recording continued. They were not discussing an attack. They were discussing control. Ownership. Access. A plan designed around Adrian's trust. The most dangerous part was not what they wanted. It was how confident they sounded. They believed Adrian would never question them. A few minutes later, Adrian stopped the recording. He needed more than a conversation. He needed proof that connected words to actions. He needed a chain. Not assumptions. Not anger. Evidence. His security team began reviewing documents connected to the agreement Victoria mentioned. Within hours, they found something unusual. A revised ownership document had been prepared weeks earlier. It had never reached Adrian's desk. The document appeared normal at first. But hidden inside the legal language was a transfer clause that would give Victoria temporary control over several important business decisions. Adrian read the document twice. Then a third time. The mistake was not obvious. It was designed to look harmless. That was what made it dangerous. Later that afternoon, Adrian called Thomas into his office. "Did you know about this agreement?" Adrian asked. Thomas looked at the paper. His expression changed. "Yes." Adrian remained silent. "Why did you not tell me?" Thomas looked away. "Because I was not sure who I could trust." That answer surprised Adrian. "You work for me." Thomas nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. But there are moments when people stop working for a person and start protecting themselves." Adrian studied him. For years, Thomas had been the person who organized everything in the house. Yet now Adrian saw something he had missed. Thomas was not hiding a secret because he was guilty. He was hiding because he was afraid of choosing the wrong side. That evening, Mia sat at the kitchen table drawing with colored pencils. Adrian walked past and noticed her drawing. It was the table. Underneath, it was a small black square with a red dot. "You remember it?" Adrian asked. Mia nodded. "It was hiding." Adrian looked at the drawing. "Why do you think it was hiding?" Mia thought for a moment. "Because nobody looked there." The answer was simple, but it stayed with him. Adrian had spent years building walls, hiring experts, and creating systems to protect himself. Yet the truth had been sitting under a table in his own kitchen, found by the one person nobody thought was important enough to notice. That night, Adrian opened another recovered file from the recorder. The screen showed the name of the recording. Emergency Transfer Plan. He clicked it. Before the audio began, one message appeared. File created by Household Network Device. Adrian looked at the screen. Someone had used the house itself to build the plan against him. And now, he needed to know exactly how far the betrayal went. Adrian Blackwood stared at the words on the screen. Emergency Transfer Plan. The name alone told him this was no simple misunderstanding. Someone had spent months preparing a path to move power away from him without his knowledge. But Adrian had learned one thing over decades of dealing with betrayal. The first truth you find is rarely the whole truth. The next morning, he asked his security team to continue the investigation quietly. No announcements. No accusations. No sudden changes inside the mansion. He wanted to see the entire structure before removing a single piece. "Find every connection," Adrian said. "The documents, the messages, the payments, everything." The team began tracing the information hidden behind the recorder. The first discovery came from the kitchen delivery records. For months, special deliveries had arrived after regular hours. They were listed as private supplies for the household. At first glance, nothing looked unusual. But the names connected to those deliveries told a different story. The deliveries matched nights when Victoria, Marco, and Thomas had all been present in the kitchen after everyone else had left. Adrian looked at the timeline on his screen. 3 months of small events. 3 months of conversations. 3 months of people believing nobody was paying attention. Then another piece appeared. A series of messages between Marco and an outside accounting firm. They were not discussing recipes or household expenses. They were discussing financial records. Adrian leaned back in his chair. The plan was becoming clearer. Victoria had not built a simple secret. She had built a system. A system where every person had a small role, and no one person could see the entire picture. Except now Adrian could. He called Thomas into his office again. This time, he did not ask about the recorder. "How long did you know something was wrong?" Adrian asked. Thomas remained quiet. "A few weeks," he finally answered. "Maybe longer." Adrian looked at him carefully. "Why did you stay silent?" Thomas looked toward the window overlooking the property. "Because I have worked in this house for 20 years. I have seen people come close to you because of your name, your money, and your influence. I thought Victoria was different." Adrian said nothing. Thomas continued. Then I started noticing things. Questions about schedules. Questions about documents. Questions about who had access to certain rooms. Adrian noticed the choice of words. Not accusations. Observations. Did you place the recorder? Adrian asked. Thomas shook his head. No. But I knew someone wanted information from that kitchen. Another answer. Another piece. But still not enough. Adrian returned to the kitchen later that day. Mia was sitting at the table with Elena, drawing again. She looked up when he entered. Are you looking for the little box? She asked. Adrian almost smiled. The little box? Mia nodded. The thing that was hiding. He looked at the table. Mia, did you see anyone near here? She thought carefully. Adrian did not rush her. He knew the difference between questioning a child and listening to one. I saw shiny shoes, she said. Elena immediately looked concerned. Mia, do not make things up. Adrian raised his hand gently. Let her answer. Mia looked at the floor. They were clean shoes. They went under the table. Adrian looked at Elena, then back at Mia. Do you know whose shoes? Mia shook her head. No. I only saw the shoes. It was not a perfect answer. It was not a witness statement that could solve everything. But it was another detail. Another small piece adults ignored. Adrian had spent his life believing important information came from powerful people sitting in important rooms. Mia kept proving him wrong. That evening, the final report from the security team arrived. The recorder had been activated manually every night between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. The same 2-hour window. The same kitchen. The same place where people believed nobody was listening. Then one final line appeared in the report. The device used to activate the recorder was registered to a household account. Adrian opened the account details. The name appeared on the screen. Victoria Hale. For the first time, Adrian did not feel surprised. He felt certain. But certainty was not enough. He needed the truth to stand where everyone could see it. And before he moved, he needed to understand one final thing. Was Victoria the person controlling the plan, or was she only protecting someone even more powerful? Adrian Blackwood had spent his entire life understanding power. Power was built on information, timing, and knowing when to move. But for the first time in years, Adrian was not rushing toward a decision. He was waiting. Because now, he understood the difference between discovering a secret and proving it. The security report had connected the recorder to Victoria's household account, but Adrian knew that one piece of evidence could still be challenged. A smart person could explain away a mistake. A careful person could create doubt. Adrian needed something stronger. He needed a chain that could not be broken. So he did something Victoria never expected. He acted like nothing had changed. At breakfast, Adrian sat across from Victoria at the same table where he had once trusted every word she said. He smiled. He discussed business. He asked about her plans for the charity event that weekend. Victoria appeared relaxed, confident, certain that the situation had passed. I am glad that little misunderstanding is over, she said while stirring her coffee. Adrian looked at her. So am I. The words were simple, but he noticed the way she answered too quickly. She wanted the conversation closed. She wanted everyone to move on. Adrian allowed her to believe she had succeeded. Behind the scenes, his team continued investigating. They reviewed the household network, financial records, and communication history. The first major discovery came from the security system. The recorder had not been activated randomly. It had been scheduled. Every night. At the same time. For months. Someone was not simply collecting information. Someone was waiting for a specific conversation. Then came another discovery. A hidden folder inside the household management system contained copies of documents that had never been sent to Adrian. Among them was a revised business agreement. It looked almost identical to the original. Almost. But one section gave temporary decision authority to a family representative if Adrian became unavailable. It was written carefully. It was legal. It was designed to survive questions. Adrian read the document silently. This was not an emotional betrayal. It was organized. Victoria had not trusted luck. She had built a plan. That evening, Adrian returned to the kitchen. Mia was there with Elena, placing small pieces of paper into her coloring book. Adrian noticed the drawing she had made earlier. The table. The hidden recorder. The small red light. "You remembered everything," Adrian said. Mia looked up. "It was important." Adrian paused. A 3-year-old did not understand contracts or control. She did not understand why adults lied. But she understood when something did not belong. "Mia," Adrian asked softly, "why did you look under the table?" She pointed at her stuffed bear. "My bear went there." Then she looked at the table. "And I saw the light." That was all. No dramatic explanation. No impossible knowledge. Just a child noticing something because she was close enough to see it. Adrian looked at Elena. For years, he had walked through his own home without seeing the people who kept it running. He had seen employees. He had not seen individuals. The next morning, Adrian made his decision. He did not confront Victoria. He did not remove anyone from the house. Instead, he quietly changed access permissions, secured the company accounts, and prepared a private meeting with his legal team. He also gave Elena something she never expected. A direct contact number that connected to his office, not the household staff line. "If something feels wrong," Adrian told her, "you call me directly." Elena looked surprised. "Mr. Blackwood, I do not want trouble." Adrian shook his head. "Neither do I. That is why I need people who notice things." For the first time, Elena was not being treated as invisible. She was being treated as a person. But while Adrian prepared his next move, Victoria made one of her own. The security team found a message sent from her account that morning. It was short. "The situation is changing. We need to move sooner." Adrian read the message once. Then again. The investigation was no longer about discovering whether Victoria was involved. It was about stopping the final step of a plan that was already moving forward. And this time, Adrian would not be the person being watched. He would be the person watching. The day Adrian Blackwood decided to reveal the truth, he chose the one place where the lies had been hidden for months. Not the boardroom. Not his private office. The kitchen. The same kitchen where people had spoken freely because they believed no one important was listening. The long table was prepared for the meeting. Adrian's legal team sat on one side. The company advisor sat across from them. Thomas stood quietly near the door. Elena remained beside Mia, unsure why she had been asked to attend. Victoria entered last. She looked confident, elegant, calm. She believed she was walking into a meeting where Adrian would discuss the future of the company. She did not know she was walking into the place where her own plan would be uncovered. "Adrian," Victoria said with a warm smile, "I assume this is about the agreement we discussed." Adrian looked at her. "It is about an agreement. Just not the one you expected." Victoria sat down slowly. Adrian placed a folder on the table. Inside were copies of the revised documents, communication records, access logs, and financial connections. But he did not start with those. He started with the smallest piece of evidence. The recorder. He placed it in the center of the table. The room became quiet. "This device was found under this table," Adrian said. "By Mia." Victoria glanced toward the child. It was a small movement, almost invisible. But Elena noticed it. Adrian noticed it too. A child found something every adult in this house ignored, Adrian continued. That should have been the first warning. Victoria remained composed. Adrian, are you seriously suggesting that I have something to do with the recording device because a child found it? Her voice was calm, reasonable, exactly how she had always presented herself. Adrian did not answer immediately. Instead, he pressed a button. The recording began. The room filled with Victoria's own voice. Adrian always believes loyalty is the same as love. No one moved. The recording continued. It revealed conversations about the agreement, the timing, and the plan to gain temporary control over key decisions. The truth was not dramatic. It did not need to be. It was simply there. Clear. Organized. Impossible to ignore. Victoria looked at the recorder, then at Adrian. You do not understand what you are hearing. Adrian remained calm. Then explain it. For the first time, Victoria hesitated. Not because she had no answer. Because she realized every answer would create another question. Adrian continued presenting the evidence. The camera access records showed the kitchen system had been monitored. The document history showed changes made before Adrian ever saw the agreement. The financial records connected the outside accounting firm to the revised plan. Every piece connected to the next. No single clue had defeated her. The chain had. Thomas stepped forward. I tried to warn people, he said quietly, but I did not have enough proof. Adrian looked at him. Now you do. The room remained silent. Then Adrian turned toward Elena. For years, she had stood in that kitchen serving people who never learned her name. Today, everyone was listening. Elena Carter, Adrian said, your employment record shows years of dedication and no complaints. Yet your access was reduced because someone wanted fewer people asking questions. Elena looked surprised. She had expected blame. She had expected another accusation. She had not expected respect. Adrian looked back at Victoria. You thought the people in this house were invisible. That was your mistake. Victoria's confidence finally disappeared. Not because Adrian had raised his voice. He did not need to. The evidence had already spoken. The meeting ended with legal action beginning against Victoria and the others involved. No threats. No revenge. Just consequences created by records, documents, and proof. As everyone slowly left the kitchen, Mia walked toward the table and looked underneath it. She checked the empty space where the recorder had been hidden. Adrian noticed and smiled slightly. Looking for something? Mia shook her head. No. It is not hiding anymore. Adrian looked at the table. Those simple words stayed with him. For years, he had believed power meant making sure nothing happened without him knowing. But the truth had been different. Power was not only controlling what people saw. Sometimes it was finally learning to see what others had been trying to show you all along. 3 weeks after the truth was revealed, the Blackwood mansion felt different. The rooms were the same. The marble floors still reflected the lights. The long dining table still stood in the center of the home. But something had changed that money could not buy. People were no longer afraid to speak. For years, the employees of the mansion had learned to stay quiet. They learned which questions to avoid, which conversations to ignore, and which problems to carry alone. But after the investigation into Victoria Hale and the others involved, Adrian Blackwood changed the way his entire household worked. He did not simply remove people and replace them. He changed the system that allowed people to be ignored. Every employee received a direct way to report concerns. Every department had clear records. Every person, regardless of their position, had a voice. Elena Carter noticed the difference immediately. She still arrived early every morning. She still prepared the rooms and helped keep the house organized. But now people looked at her when they spoke to her. They asked for her opinion. They thanked her. She was no longer just the person who cleaned the mansion. She was Elena, a person whose work mattered. One afternoon, Adrian found her in the kitchen organizing supplies. "You know you do not have to apologize every time you walk into a room," Adrian said. Elena looked surprised. "I did not realize I was doing that." Adrian nodded. "Most people do not realize the habits they learn when nobody listens to them." Elena smiled quietly. "Mia changed more than she knows." Adrian looked toward the table. The same table where everything had started. Mia was sitting nearby, drawing with her colored pencils. She was not drawing the recorder anymore. She was drawing her family. Her mother. Her stuffed bear. The kitchen. And Adrian sitting beside them. Adrian looked at the picture. "You stopped drawing the little black box." Mia looked up. "It was not hiding anymore." Those words stayed with him. Because Mia had understood something Adrian had spent years avoiding. Secrets only had power when people protected them with silence. A month later, the legal process against Victoria and the others continued. The evidence collected from the recorder, camera records, financial documents, and communication history created a clear picture of the plan. There were no rumors, no guesses, no personal revenge. Only facts. Victoria's reputation was damaged not because Adrian attacked her, but because the truth could no longer be hidden. The people involved faced the consequences of their decisions through the proper legal channels. Adrian made sure the resolution was handled through evidence and accountability, not anger. He wanted the world to understand one thing. Real justice was not about destroying someone. It was about protecting the people who had been ignored and making sure the same thing could not happen again. One evening, Adrian returned to the kitchen after a long day. He sat down on the floor near the table. The same place where Mia had discovered the recorder. For years, Adrian had believed the most powerful person in a room was the person with the most authority. But that was before Mia. Before a 3-year-old girl with a stuffed bear showed him that noticing the smallest detail could reveal the biggest truth. Mia walked over and sat beside him. "Are you hiding something?" she asked. Adrian smiled. It was a question only a child would ask. But it carried a meaning he understood. "No," he said. "I was hiding from something." Mia looked curious. "What?" Adrian looked around the kitchen. "The truth." Mia thought about that for a moment, then handed him her drawing. It was simple. A table. A family. A home. Adrian accepted it carefully. Not as a gift from a child. As a reminder. The person who saved his future was not the person with the most money, the most influence, or the most power. It was the little girl everyone thought was too young to understand. The little girl who looked where nobody else looked. The little girl who found the truth waiting underneath a kitchen table.